She had lived for 94 years, and yet loneliness had crept into every corner of her tiny house. Before we begin, make sure you like and subscribe for more real-life emotional stories. Martha sat in her chair by the window, the sunlight spilling across her wrinkled hands, her eyes tracing the empty street below, where children used to play and neighbors used to visit, but now there was only silence. The ticking of the clock was a constant reminder that life was passing her by. She had lost her husband decades ago. Her children lived far away, and phone calls were brief and hurried, and the meals she prepared were eaten alone in the dim light of her kitchen. She tried to fill the hours with knitting, television, and reading, but the emptiness kept pressing in on her heart until one rainy afternoon. There was a knock at the door, a knock she almost ignored because visitors had become so rare, but something in the sound made her shuffle forward, and when she opened the door, a giant dog stood there dripping wet, its fur matted with rain and eyes that seemed to see into her very soul. It was a massive creature, yet gentle in its presence, and without hesitation, it stepped inside as if it had always known this house was meant for it and for her. The first night the dog curled at the foot of her bed, and she felt warmth she had not felt in decades, its breathing a steady rhythm beside her own, and over the following days it became a constant companion. It followed her from room to room, its large head resting on her lap when she sat in her chair, its paws nudging her when she forgot to eat or take her medicine, and slowly she began to notice a change. The empty walls no longer seemed so oppressive, the meals tasted sweeter because someone waited for her presence, and its joyful bark at the mailman or the squirrels outside made her laugh again. She even began to speak to the neighbors, who had once seemed strangers, and in her heart Martha realized that the giant dog had not only filled her house but also her life with companionship. She had thought she would die quietly and alone, but now each morning she awoke with a sense of purpose. Walking the dog through the empty park, watching him bound over the grass, feeling the cool breeze on her face, and the years of sorrow that had weighed her down seemed lighter with every step they took together. She named him Titan, a name that matched his size and the magnitude of the love he had brought into her life, and as they sat together by the fireplace on a cold winter evening, Martha stroked his fur and whispered thank you, knowing she would never truly be alone again. The neighborhood began to notice a change too. They smiled when they saw them walking together. The once sad old woman now had a spring in her step, and even the children, who had grown used to looking the other way, waved at her, and Titan wagged his tail because he knew he had rescued not just her but herself, had rescued the life she had thought lost. And she realized that sometimes family comes in forms you least expect, and that even at 94 years old the heart has room to bloom again. And in the quiet moments late at night when the house was still and the wind whispered outside, Martha would look at Titan sleeping peacefully beside her, and she would feel a sense of gratitude and wonder she had never imagined in all her years of solitude. She had been given a second chance, and every day became a celebration of companionship, laughter, and the simple joy of shared moments, and she promised herself she would never take a single day for granted because life had found a way to reach her heart again. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and the rhythm of Martha and Titan's life grew steady and comforting. Yet there were still moments of fear and doubt. When the shadows of her old loneliness crept back into the corners of her mind, she would sometimes wake in the night and stare at the empty ceiling, thinking about the years she had spent isolated and wondering if the warmth she felt was only temporary. But Titan was always there, his heavy body pressed against her legs, his soft snoring a constant reassurance that she was not alone anymore. He seemed to sense her unease, nudging her hand with his wet nose, or pawing gently at her arm, until a smile broke through her. For on one cold evening, as Martha prepared tea, she noticed the fire in the hearth flickering against the walls, and she realized that Titan had been watching the window for hours. She walked over and saw shadows moving in the yard, figures she could not clearly identify, and a shiver ran down her spine. She was startled and called Titan, who barked loudly, his deep sound filling the house with courage. Martha slowly opened the door and saw a group of stray dogs moving along the fence line. Titan stepped forward without hesitation, standing between Martha and the intruders, his massive frame a living shield. And in that moment Martha realized the depth of his loyalty and bravery. She had never felt so protected and so cared for. And the adrenaline faded into laughter as the strays wandered off, leaving Titan triumphant and proud. Life continued in this rhythm of small adventures and quiet moments. Titan became not just a companion but a reason for Martha to get out of bed each morning. He encouraged her to venture into the garden, to plant flowers, to feed the birds, to walk further than she had in years, and with each passing day she felt her energy returning. She remembered the birthdays she had once celebrated alone, and now she had Titan waiting for her with wagging tail and warm eyes, and she even started inviting neighbors. And slowly at first, but then more confidently, they came to see the strange, gentle giant who had breathed new life into an old house, and the stories spread through the town of the woman and her dog who had reminded everyone that love and loyalty can appear in the most unexpected forms. One rainy afternoon, Martha found an old photo album in a dusty corner of her attic, and as she flipped through pages of faded memories, she realized how much time had passed since she had truly felt alive. Each photograph held a moment of laughter, a day spent with family or friends now distant, and yet the presence of Titan in her life filled those gaps with new memories. His paw prints in the mud mirrored the footprints of the past, and she felt a connection between what had been and what could still be. She whispered softly to him, recounting stories of her youth, and Titan listened as he understood every word, and each story seemed to weave itself into the fabric of their shared life. The seasons changed. Martha and Titan faced challenges too. There were days when her health faltered, when she felt weak and frightened, when she wondered if she could keep up with her new life, and Titan stayed by her side, never leaving her even when she fell asleep on the couch, exhausted, or when the weather outside turned harsh and unwelcoming. His presence became the anchor she had longed for, and she realized that the bond they shared was more than companionship. It was a lifeline. It was hope. It was a reminder that even in the final chapters of life, miracles can happen when least expected. Martha began to write letters to her children, sending them photographs of Titan and herself, laughing, walking, and sitting quietly together. She told them stories of how a giant dog had saved her from the abyss of solitude, and each response brought tears to her eyes, because they finally saw her as she truly was, alive, full of love and joy, and the world outside her window seemed brighter than ever. She felt a sense of fulfillment she had thought impossible, and even when nights were long and the wind howled, she never felt the gnawing ache of loneliness again, because Titan was there to fill every shadow and every silence with warmth and life. And as she sat on her porch one evening watching the sun dip below the horizon, Titan lying faithfully by her side, she knew that she had been given a gift that no years of sorrow could ever have replaced. She had been on the brink of fading away, but love had found her again in the form of a gentle giant, and she felt a happiness so profound it radiated through her entire being. She whispered a quiet thank you to the universe and to Titan, and the stars began to shine overhead, promising that no matter what the world may bring, love, loyalty, and hope can appear when one least expects it, and that sometimes the smallest decisions open the door to the greatest miracles. And so Martha and Titan's story reminds us that life can surprise us when we least expect it, that even in the loneliest moments, hope can arrive in the form of love and companionship that heals the deepest wounds and fills the emptiest corners of our hearts. Titan became more than a dog. He became a friend, a protector, a reminder that every day holds the possibility of joy and connection, that age is never a barrier to new beginnings, and that sometimes the smallest gestures, the gentle nudge of a paw, the quiet presence of someone who truly cares, can change the course of a life forever. This story touched your heart if it reminded you of someone you love or inspired you to look for the little miracles in your own life. Take a moment to appreciate the ones around you, because love has a way of finding us in the most unexpected ways, and even when the world feels dark or silent, there is always a chance for light and warmth to return, and for us to feel alive. Again, we share stories like Martha and Titan's because they remind us to never give up, to keep our hearts open, and to cherish the moments that make life meaningful, because the bonds we form even in the most unlikely circumstances can bring strength, courage, and happiness beyond measure, and you never know when that special connection will appear to change everything for the better, and that every act of kindness, every small gesture of love, has the power to transform a life in ways we cannot imagine.